They say that travel broadens the mind, and in this series, we're going to be traveling to places that I've never been to in real life, and in many cases, you may not be able to get to in real life at all. Today, we're going to be flying from South Korea all the way up to Pyongyang in North Korea. Now, before we get started, just a quick note. This series is not intended to teach you how to fly an aircraft. In actual fact, it's probably intended to show you how not to fly an aircraft. We won't be flying using ATC or traffic or any of those fancy gizmos. What we're going to be doing here is we're going to be using this series to see some sights and learn about some of the most fascinating places in the world. I hope you enjoy. Today we'll be starting our flight at Gimpo International Airport in South Korea and heading pretty well due north to Pyongyang in North Korea. Along the way we'll be passing the demilitarized zone, a rich cultural heritage, a missile operating base, and even free ice cream. So let's hop inside the cockpit of our DC-3 that we're going to be taking on today's trip, and we're going to get the engine started, but firstly we need to get the hydraulic pressure up so that we're able to open the cowl flaps. We can see the gauges there are increasing in pressure as we pump. With that being done, we're going to go ahead and open up the cowl flaps. Let's have a quick look outside once that's done, just to verify that they're open, which they are. Seems we have a bit of traffic departing or arriving at Gimpo. So at least we know which runway is the active runway. Alright, now the cowl flaps are open. Next thing for us to do is to get ready for engine start. I'm going to turn on the avionics. Next, we'll make sure that we've got fuel flowing to or from both tanks, the left main and the right main tank. We'll crack the throttles a little bit and make sure the mixtures are set to full rich for engine start, as well as making sure that the prop levers are all the way forward. With that being done, let's just open up the windows now. We're going to be turning on the fuel pumps and the booster pumps. Firstly for the right engine, making sure that our magnetos for the electrical are set to both on both the left and right engines. Turn off the primer. Set the engine selection to the right engine and then start to mesh them. And once we have about 12 or so turns of the propeller, we then introduce the fuel and we get a good clean engine start. Okay, right engine is started now. Let's prepare to get the left engine set up as well. We repeat the same process over for the left engine. Twelve or so blades. Then introduce the fuel. Okay, so now we're good to go. We've got our DC3 started and we're about ready to taxi. We're not going to be getting any form of ATC clearance here because, quite frankly, ATC would not allow us to go where we're going to go. So let's head on off. So the reason that we chose to depart from Gimpo Airport today is because it's one of the closest airports to the demilitarized zone, the DMZ, which separates South and North Korea. We'll be looking at that a little bit further later on, but Gimpo Airport is quite interesting in itself. It was originally built during the Japanese occupation in 1939. And then it was expanded significantly by the US during the Korean War, and they used it as a key air base. And after the war, Gimpo became transformed into Seoul's primary international airport, and it was mainly handling all of the international traffic for South Korea until Incheon Airport was opened in 2001. But today, Gimpo serves mainly domestic and select short-haul international flights, but it's still a vital hub connecting Seoul to key Asian cities. So for this adventure series, I'm going to do things a little differently. Apart from knowing where I'm taking off and where my destination is, I'm not going to plan the route in advance. I want to leave room for discovery and stumble upon places maybe I wouldn't find otherwise. It's going to be more about the journey than the destination. But later, I'm going to go back and analyse the places that I've been, dig into the history, culture, and maybe even uncover things that I've missed. So I chose the DC3 for today's adventure for a few reasons. Firstly, it's slow enough so that we can enjoy and appreciate the scenery along the way. And secondly, because it played a vital contributing role in the Korean War. As you're probably aware, the DC-3 in its wartime version was known as the C-47 Skytrain. And these planes were used to transport troops, supplies, and evacuate the wounded, often flying in and out of rough makeshift airstrips. The DC-3 wasn't flashy, but it got the job done. It was a reliable and dependable workhorse, just the same as it's always been, both in military and civilian use. So here we are on runway 32, almost ready for takeoff for our clandestine mission into North Korea. We apply full power, and I don't know why, but in the DC-3, when the tail lifts off the ground, I have to apply a whole bootful of rudder to try to keep on the runway. Now I do know that this would be typical to a certain degree, but I do think the effect is somewhat exaggerated in Flight Simulator 2024. Anyway, we're approaching takeoff speed, ready for liftoff. And with a sudden lurch, we're on our way. So we're now flying over the northern part of South Korea, if that makes sense. Gimpo Airport is around about 30 to 35 kilometers south of the demilitarized zone, the border between North and South Korea. We're about 19 to 22 miles for our American friends. It's surprising how densely populated this area is, considering its proximity to one of the most heavily fortified and guarded borders in the world. So that river below us now is part of the Han River, but because this is in South Korea, it's known as the Namhan River, and when it goes to North Korea, it's known as the Bukhan River. Namhan meaning South Han, and Bukhan meaning North Han. Okay, so one thing you must be warned about during this trip, I'm sure to murder quite a few of these names, so please bear with me. So let's talk about the DMZ, the Korean Demilitarized Zone. It's a 250 kilometer long, 4 kilometer wide buffer that slices across the Korean peninsula, separating North and South Korea since the 1953 armistice. Ironically, despite the name, it's one of the most heavily fortified borders in the world, lined with fences, guard posts, and landmines. On the southern side, there's observation posts and tourist sites like the Dora Observatory. On the northern side, it's much more secretive. But just beyond the fences are farming villages and military installations. We're now approaching the South and North Korean border, and I'm not sure what I was expecting, perhaps something along the lines of the Berlin Wall or something far more visual. But along here, the border runs across the middle of the Han River. That means technically that the DMZ is situated 2 kilometres to the north and 2 kilometres to the south of the river that we're approaching now. And welcome to North Korea. Our airspace's chart is showing that we're probably somewhere we shouldn't be right now as we fly towards Amsil, which is probably the town closest to the DMZ and the border between North and South Korea. It was about this stage that I saw something interesting off to the left. So I decided to peel off from my self-imposed flight plan and go and take a look. That area down there on the left is got some form of bridge, but it looks like it may be sunken or destroyed. Certainly there doesn't appear to be a bridge above the surface of the water. Strangely though, this may appear within the simulator, but it does not appear on Google Maps or Google Earth. Definitely something is there that is no longer a physical presence above the water. So despite my best investigative efforts, I was unable to find any mention of a bridge that may have been damaged, destroyed or removed between Amsil in North Korea and Yonggwang-ri in South Korea. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen, however. So with that mystery unsolved, I decided to resume my course towards Pyongyang. As you may have guessed, I'm not really an expert on North Korea. The information that I'm passing along to you is information that I've gathered from places like Google Earth, Google Maps, Wikipedia, and various AI large language models. If you find any discrepancies or inaccuracies in what I've been telling you, please do leave them down in the comments below. We'd all be happy to learn together. Up ahead I spot the first real city I've seen since I crossed the border. And turns out this is the city known as Kaesong. It's approximately a few kilometers north of the border and 70 kilometers south of Pyongyang. So we're getting there. Kaesong is probably best known internationally for a thing they call the Kaesong Industrial Complex. It was a joint venture between North and South Korean economic zones established in 2004, and South Korean companies employed North Korean workers there. It was a pretty rare symbol of cooperation, but unfortunately it was shut down in 2016. Let's go and pay them a visit. As we fly along Kaesong, we're going to be passing almost directly over the Manwolde Palace. It was the royal palace of the Goryeo dynasty, constructed in 919 AD under King Taejo, who was the founder of the Goryeo dynasty. The Goryeo dynasty reigned between 918 AD to 1392 AD. This palace was destroyed multiple times by fire and invasion over the years. It had major damage in 1361 and its final destruction and abandonment occurred in 1392. It was left in ruins for many years, but since the 2000s, joint North and South Korean archaeological teams have conducted some major excavations, and Manwaldi has become part of the UNESCO-listed Historic Monuments and Sites in Kaesong, designated in 2013. As we resume our course towards the northeast, we're going to be passing several historical tombs, including that of the tomb of King Hwangyeon, which is one of the most historically significant royal tombs on the Korean peninsula. King Hwangyeon was the founder of the Goryeo dynasty, and it unified the Korean peninsula after centuries of division. His reign marked the beginning of nearly 500 years of Goryeo rule, from which the name Korea is derived. The tomb was built shortly after the death of King Hwangyeon in 994 AD and has been restored by North Korea in 1994. Travelling north from Kaesong towards Kamcheon, we find that the terrain becomes increasingly rugged. The road winds through low mountains and narrow valleys with gentle slopes covered in forest and farmland. Occasional riverbeds cut through the hills, and the elevation gradually increases as we move north. The region features a mix of granite ridges, rolling foothills, and pockets of flat agricultural land nestled between the slopes, offering a varied and scenic journey through central North Hwanghae province. Our next flyover will be along Kumchon County, which, as of 2008, had a population of around about 68,000 people. Following some natural disasters, Kumchon County was rebuilt in 2020, showcasing some modern infrastructure and housing developments. We can see as we travel from Kumchon towards Insun that the land usage here is predominantly agricultural. Primary crops that are grown in this area include rice, maize, potatoes, wheat and barley, and soybeans as well. The farming in this region primarily involves what they call collective farms, where communities work together on shared land. However, there's been a gradual introduction of individual contract work systems recently, allowing farmers more autonomy over their specific plots. Due to limited access to modern machinery and fertilizers, farmers often rely on manual labor and organic farming practices. This includes the use of compost and natural pest control methods to maintain soil health and crop yields. Terracing is frequently employed on sloped lands to prevent soil erosion and manage water flow. In areas with sufficient water resources, Irrigation canals are used to supply water to various paddy fields. We're now flying above Insun, which is located in Rinsun County. As of the 2008 census, this area had a population of about 73,000 people, and that was divided amongst 19 villages and this one city that we're seeing now. And other than that, not a great deal more of information is publicly available about Insun. Life in North Korea's provinces, like the areas around here, is quiet, structured, and deeply rooted in routine. Villages and small towns are modest, with concrete apartment blocks, dirt roads, and minimal commercial activity. Most houses have limited electricity, and access to running water can be inconsistent. Daily life is highly regimented, with loudspeakers delivering state messages and local meetings reinforcing ideological education. There are few private vehicles, so most people walk or bike, and transport between towns is controlled. Schools and workplaces dominate the daily schedule, while entertainment options are pretty sparse and often state-run. Despite the challenges, though, communities are tightly knit and people rely on neighbours and family to manage life under resource-limited conditions. In many ways, the provinces reflect a simpler, slower pace of life, one shaped by isolation, discipline, and resilience. As I continued my journey through this remote and rugged countryside, I checked my map and was surprised to see a sign offering free ice cream. That instantly raised my suspicion. Why would anybody be offering free ice cream here, of all places? And so I started to look around to see perhaps whether they were trying to lure my attention from somewhere else, and then I found it. As I scanned the area more closely, there it was, a hidden military installation. This military installation is known as the Second Mole Missile Operating Base and is located about 85 kilometres north of the DMZ. Its primary purpose is to house short-range ballistic missiles, principally offering a potential threat to South Korean targets. We weren't a South Korean target, but I sure as heck was not going to be getting anywhere near there. So we continued our journey on towards Pyongyang. Having passed the Second Mole Missile Operating Base was a stark reminder of the conflicts that are still troubling this beautiful land. So how did we get here? It was due to the Korean War, which was one of the first major conflicts of the Cold War, and it was one of the most devastating. Well, it began on June the 25th, 1950. When North Korean troops, backed by the Soviet Union and China, crossed the 38th parallel and launched a surprise invasion of South Korea. But the seeds of war were planted many years earlier. After Japan's defeat in World War II, Korea, which was once a unified country under Japanese colonial rule, was divided into two zones of occupation: the Soviets in the north and the Americans in the south. And what was meant to be a temporary division quickly solidified into two ideologically opposed regimes. In 1948, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea was established in the north under Kim Il-sung, while the Republic of Korea formed in the south under Syngman Rhee. Tensions escalated in both governments, as both governments claimed the right to rule all of Korea. Skirmishes, border raids, and political propaganda fueled mistrust, and then came the invasion. The United Nations, led by the United States, quickly intervened to defend South Korea. In a bold, amphibious landing at Incheon, UN forces pushed the North Koreans back toward the Chinese border. But that success triggered a massive Chinese counter-offensive, leading to brutal fighting and eventually a stalemate near the original dividing line. After 3 years of intense combat, a ceasefire was eventually signed on July the 27th, 1953, but no peace treaty was ever concluded. The Korean peninsula remains divided to this day, separated by the heavily fortified DMZ, or Demilitarized Zone. The Korean War claimed millions of lives, left the country shattered, and set the tone for decades of Cold War confrontation. It's often called the Forgotten War, but its legacy is very much alive, especially in the ongoing tensions between North and South Korea. This area that we're approaching is known as Chiso-dong. It's part of the Gangdong County area, about 50 kilometers south of Pyongyang. It's predominantly a rural community and encompasses an area of approximately 536 square kilometers. As part of the 2008 census, its population was ranked at around about 221,000 people. As you can see, we're rapidly approaching Pyongyang, and the difference between the old and the new has become starkly obvious as we get closer. My eyes are drawn towards that very large structure almost immediately ahead of us. Let's go and see what that is. But before we reach Pyongyang, we'll be passing another historical burial site along the way. This time it's the tomb of King Tongmyong. King Tongmyong established the Goguryeo kingdom in 37 BC, and it was the foundation for a dynasty that would last for centuries. The tomb was believed to have been constructed in around 427 AD, and it stands as a testament to his enduring legacy. As we approach Pyongyang from the countryside, the landscape shifts from rolling farmland and scattered villages to denser clusters of buildings and wide, orderly roads. Towering monuments and structured apartment blocks come into view. The Taedong River bisects the city, and the capital rises straight ahead of us, imposing, planned, and unmistakably designed to impress. What we're looking at now is the Rungrado 1st of May Stadium, also known as the Rungrado May Day Stadium. It's a multi-purpose venue and has a capacity of around about 114 to 150,000 people, making it one of the largest stadiums globally. This is the Pyongyang International Cinema Hall. It has a 2,000-seat auditorium, performance and recording facilities, a 600-seat bar, and a 1980s style restaurant. And this building is the Pyongyang Sci-Tech Complex, completed in 2015 and notable for its distinctive atom-shaped architecture. The complex houses an e-library equipped with approximately 3,000 computer terminals, providing access to North Korea's intranet. It also features lecture halls, interactive exhibits, and a full-scale model of the Unha-3 rocket, which launched the Hwangmyeong-4 satellite. Don't get me to repeat that again. So, that was North Korea. I hope, like me, you found a lot of new and interesting facts about this land that is usually shrouded in so much secrecy. Even if you didn't learn anything, I do hope that you enjoyed the journey along with us today. We'd like to invite you to join us on our next adventure. In the meantime, please do like and subscribe to this channel, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time. Separating North and South Korea since the 1953 armistice. Maria. Let's start again.